What's all the fuss really about? Unless you started bass fishing yesterday, you've heard the discussion surrounding forward facing sonar. And if you did start fishing yesterday, you're definitely in the right place. You may have heard it being called Livescope, Active Target, or Mega Live. It just depends on the brand people are using. I want you to grab your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, and let's take a deep dive into what we call forward facing sonar. Forward-facing sonar is probably the most controversial topic in the history of the sport. There's a group of anglers that almost consider it cheating, and there's some that thinks it's the next best thing since sliced bread. I can understand both sides of the debate, but I think more people are coming over to the forward-facing sonar side than we actually realize. Some of them are coming in secret. In the past couple of years, right, a lot of tournaments have been dominated by forward-facing sonar. But there's also some tournaments that are still being won without it. Here's one of the thorns that people have that are really sticking in this side. Many people say, someone that's been fishing for a year or two could actually beat someone that's been fishing for 20 years if they utilize forward-facing sonar. They feel that this technology has taken the technical skills out of bass fishing and it's been replaced by, a technology similar to a video game. I will say this though, with, all the high school bass fishing stuff going on, college bass fishing, and the means to research anything, right, about bass fishing, on the internet, the competition is getting a lot tougher. I think many people are getting a little frustrated at the rapid pace. A lot of new anglers have reached a certain level of expertise using forward-facing sonar and the research they have at their fingertips. In the past, this has taken like years, sometimes even decades to accomplish. And people are doing it like in 2 and 3 years now. Let's take a look at some of the advantages I've seen personally. One of the biggest advantages of forward-facing sonar to me is that it helps me eliminate water a lot quicker. Before I had it, I would spend time making several casts at certain spots, to find out, if they were productive or not. With forward-facing sonar, I can actually see if I'm around fish without even making a cast. Covering unproductive water can eat up fishing time and result in an unsuccessful day on the water. I'm a shallow water fisherman by nature, and I've always beat the banks up until now. Targeting fish offshore and suspended fish is another big advantage of forward-facing sonar that I've taken advantage of. Before, I had no clue how to target fish offshore except by, fishing structure in an area and hoping to catch one. Being able to see fish in real time has made this style of fishing very productive for me. Anglers are now fishing for fish in areas where they've never fished for them before. The big plus to that is these fish are not as pressured as the fish may be in shallow water. And also there may be schools of them and you have them all to yourself. Some bass are out in the middle of nowhere and they've never probably seen all 39 colors of a roboworm hanging from a drop shot. Targeting bass offshore can be a huge addition to your tournament strategy. I think one of the best lessons forward-facing sonar has taught me is about fish behavior. I've seen fish follow my lure all the way back to the boat several times, and it was the same fish, and they just did not commit. This gives me the opportunity to change lures, the action of the lure, the size of the lure, or the color of the lure to help trigger a strike. Sometimes I will make a cast in the area, that looks like it should be holding fish, and I'll throw something out there like a shaky head and just let it sit there and not move it. I was amazed at, sometimes I didn't see any fish on the graph, but they would come over and investigate the lure. Places I didn't even think bass would actually be holding are holding fish. And when I see areas like this, I try to explore them because if I find similar areas like this, they could be holding bass as well. Let's go ahead and get this out the way. Learning forward-facing sonar isn't easy, and it takes a lot of time on the water to really dial it in, get used to what you're seeing, and how to interpret it. I've been using it for about 2 years, and I still consider myself a beginner. It's definitely not magic, and it's not going to guide your boat, to the fish. Some people think it's easy as just like turning on a switch on your screen and you start catching fish. Just because you see fish on the screen doesn't mean you're going to be able to catch them. You still have to be able to find fish, to begin with. So basic knowledge of bass, behavior, seasonal patterns, weather, lure presentation, and reading different types of structure, all that's going to be needed. Also, you're going to be able to need to identify, what a bass actually looks like on the screen. This comes, with understanding how different fish look, position themselves, and act on your screen. Forward-facing sonar can also hurt you in some tournaments. Let's use this as an example. Let's say if I went out on a Tuesday to practice for a tournament that weekend and found a school of, spotted bass in about 20 feet of water on a main lake point. After catching a couple, I decided to try some, different areas, and I found 3 more points that held fish, and they were all biting. Okay, let's rewind for a little bit. Okay, real talk. I'm probably going to set the hook on every fish that bites since I got 4 days before the tournament. I'm just saying. It's tournament day, and I decided to go back to the first point where I started at. I spent about 45 minutes there and don't get a bite at all. They would react to the bait and follow it, but wouldn't commit. So I changed my bait, I changed the color and everything, but still no takers. So I decided to go to the next spot. The same exact thing happened. The weather's the same, the water temp's the same, and it's the same time of day. I really don't know, what actually changed, but the fish are not responding positively to the bait I'm presenting. After spending, over 2.5 hours trying to duplicate something that worked in practice, I soon realized I should have switched to plan B. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut, and go with your instincts when plan A isn't working. This comes from experience you get from time on the water. The problem is that you can see the fish, and you know they're there. Since you can see the fish, you figure you can get them to bite. You got that much confidence in yourself. I'm going to stop you, right there, right? I'm going to stop your whole thought process and tell you you can't always get them to bite. It's like fishing for bedding fish for over an hour with no luck. When do you stop and move on, right? One thing I haven't really mentioned yet, about forward-facing sonar is the price. With all 3 major brands, Garmin, Humminbird, and Lowrance, making their own versions of forward-facing sonar, I really haven't seen too many price drops. For a bass boat, this can cost around $6,500 for 2 12-inch graphs and the forward-facing sonar system. For a kayak, you're probably going to spend around $2,500 for a 9-inch graph and the forward-facing sonar system. I have a friend of mine, I'm not going to call his name. He knows who he is. He had his doubts about forward-facing sonar, and was hesitant about, making that purchase. After he made the purchase, it opened up a whole new dimension to his fishing game, and he absolutely loves it. Here are my final thoughts on the subject. If you want to stay competitive as an angler or in life, you have to learn to adapt. I'm not going to tell you to run out and buy forward-facing sonar, but don't get upset when you get beat, by someone who has it, because I'm almost sure you did this. When you found out they won the last couple tournaments on Lake Norman on a red crankbait last month, you went out and got your few, didn't you? I'm just saying, same thing with forward-facing sonar. People are using it to win tournaments. I'm going to throw in a quote right now in the middle of all this that might be fitting on the topic today and life in general. It goes something like this. You never change your life until you step out of your comfort zone. Change begins at the end of your comfort zone. So take that step, no matter how small it is, and do something outside of your comfort zone. This is where the growth truly begins. I think forward-facing sonar is here to stay, and the technology will only get better in the future. I consider it a tool that can be used, to make me and other anglers more efficient on the water and put more fish in the boat. So I'm going to use it. The big question everyone should be asking themselves is what's going to be the next game changer in bass fishing? If you got even a little value out of this video, you know what to do. Set that hook on that subscribe button, drop me a comment so I'll know I'm giving you the content that you like. When you leave a comment this time, please let me know if you're using forward-facing sonar or not. Tight lines, everybody. Check out my next video and see you on the water.